The Legend of Dragoon first released in Japan in December 1999, and then in North America in the year 2000. It was the only JRPG developed and produced by Sony, by themselves for their own console. Its development span lasted 3.5 years, beginning in 1996, with a development cost of over $16 million. As of 2007, The Legend of Dragoon has sold over 960,000 copies in North America, but only 280,000 in Japan. The game went on to spawn a one-issue manga that was never translated into English. Games Radar listed Legend of Dragoon as one of the top games with untapped franchise potential. With almost 1 million copies sold, it's astonishing Sony has allowed this game to fall into obscurity. Let's see if we can change that. Let me tell you why I love this game. The Legend of Dragoon begins when a young warrior returns home from a journey to see his village burned to the ground and destroyed. A woman very special to him was taken prisoner by an evil empire. He soon sets off on a journey to rescue her. Most would assume from here how the story will unfold, but you'd be highly mistaken. The game keeps you thinking that the story is all about a civil war and an evil empire trying to dominate the world, but it quickly becomes much more as a conspiracy slowly reveals itself to the cast. The story to Legend of Dragoon comes rather slow at first, which may turn a player off, but then before you know it, the story comes rushing in, making you question everything. The lore and story of this title span a timeline of 11,000 years, with events from the past directly affecting the present, almost as though the two timelines overlap. But that's all I can say for now, without potentially ruining the story for you. The Legend of Dragoon takes a lot of risks with changing how we think a JRPG combat system would work. The game was an early adopter of quick time events. Each time you attack, you have a chance of pressing the right button at the precise moment to link multiple attacks together, called an addition. Magic is also handled differently in this game. Spells are used in one of two ways, either an item, or by transforming into what's called a Dragoon, which is a person who has been chosen by a dragon's spirit and is allowed to wield its power. Which brings me to another note that makes this game not your average everyday JRPG. In The Legend of Dragoon, rather than summoning extremely powerful beings to aid you in battle, you become them via these transformations. It's also important to note that when defending against attacks, not only will you receive less damage, but you'll also be awarded 10% of your lost health points back. And when you successfully complete an addition, you're awarded SP, which when accumulated allows you to transform into your Dragoon. Dragoon transformations actually level up and become stronger, which unlocks new spells, and when fully leveled allows the character to summon an actual dragon, dealing massive damage to all opponents on the field. Dragoon transformations are leveled up by simply accumulating SP over time. Additions level up as well, based on the number of times you successfully completed them. With each level, an addition deals more damage and awards more SP, while entirely new additions can be unlocked by leveling up your characters. When additions are leveled and Dragoon transformations are fully leveled, each fight becomes enjoyable and satisfying. With a unique mix of both Western RPG and JRPG elements, The Legend of Dragoon would be a great starting point for someone who wants to find a gateway into the genre. The Legend of Dragoon was a game that was meant to compete with juggernauts like Final Fantasy, which I believe it did so rather well, and it didn't need 15 entries into a series to do so. This game can stand on its own 2 feet against JRPGs of yesterday and JRPGs of today. It was a one-hit knockout on the Sony PlayStation.
Right from the first few minutes of the game, something about the storytelling had my attention. Having two nations on the brink of war seems common enough in video games, but there are twists being teased and interwoven throughout an otherwise ordinary situation. As a player, I was sprinkled with hints of magical and mysterious goings-on amidst a setting that otherwise seems normal enough, and with every mystery revealed, another takes place of it. For me, the game's artistic elements, from story to musical composition, attracted me as much as its design and mechanics did. I was enthralled by the attention to detail and refinement in the artistic design of many locations, not just the pre-rendered full-motion videos. The characters are colorful. The collection of scores for the soundtrack plays like a gallery of different influences rather than a single tone or feel throughout them all. The dialogue often conveys a gripping storyline. In regards to gameplay, the Additions combat system made the experience more interactive, leaving me to feel like I was earning the extra damage that comes with each successive strike. Transformation was never something I looked for, however it's a fun mechanic that adds some strategy to combat, particularly boss fights. We also get quite a fair share of assorted weapons, armor, and accessories to help us build our characters for a specific fight or just a preferred playstyle. We can specialize for offense or defense, decide on a more physical or magical focus, as well as the ever-pivotal speed stat. All in all, my love for Legend of Dragoon comes from a mixture of story, gameplay, and all the emotions it conveys to me as a player.
The Legend of Dragoon was given mixed reviews during its life cycle, which it didn't deserve at all. It's shocking to me that this was the case due to the number of sales. I clearly remember as a kid, people always had Gran Turismo, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, and The Legend of Dragoon. I remember when I was a kid playing it with one of the first friends I made when I moved to town back in 2001. How could a game that sold almost 1 million copies get a review like this? And I quote, "The game was praised by IGN for its graphics and cinematics. However, the combo system was criticized for requiring too much precision, while the titular element of Dragoon transformation was deemed inconsequential to gameplay. The game's battles were considered repetitious due to an excessive frequency of random encounters, and the game borrows too heavily from other games. A reviewer with GameSpot also described it as a highly generic RPG." End quote. Now, I will agree with IGN that the game has excellent graphics and cinematics. I can see how the addition system is difficult, but what this reviewer doesn't state is that should a player master it, it becomes a highly enjoyable and satisfying game mechanic. The Legend of Dragoon also does not, in my opinion, have a higher encounter rate than any other JRPG. At this point, I'm doubting this reviewer has ever even played a game of this genre. I can also honestly say from experience that The Legend of Dragoon does close to serial borrowing from other JRPGs. When playing, I literally scrutinized every moment, looking desperately for it, borrowing from other titles, and I couldn't find a thing. I guess Dart using a sword is a ripoff of Final Fantasy because Cloud uses a sword? I wouldn't call it generic either. The game was one of the last classic JRPGs ever made. I'm not sure how you can call it generic when it's literally the only JRPG on the console with QuickTime events, or moments in which your characters can completely transform into even stronger fighters that are capable of casting spells that do all sorts of different things. No other JRPG lets you defend to regain health. The Legend of Dragoon actually gave cool names to the spells as well, rather than labeling them fire, ice, water, or how about the items that are necessary for casting spells unless you transform into this Dragoon. Some of said items could even be used multiple times without disappearing from your inventory. Or how about stats that actually matter? Different characters have legitimate traits. Some characters are significantly slower and some are significantly faster, and this can completely change how you build your party in this game. You can't break The Legend of Dragoon and make every character hit for 9,999 damage. It's not going to happen. I think the issue with this so-called reviewer is the fact that The Legend of Dragoon is a legitimately challenging JRPG, which to me makes it stand out amongst some pretty fierce competition.
For most video games that are decades old, a present-day community isn't really expected, especially ones like Legend of Dragoon that have a linear story with no multiplayer content or developer updates. You might be surprised, however. From the year 2000, various individuals and small groups have done what they could for LOD. For example, some people set up fan sites while others have added content to the wiki. Little has come about recently, however, so I made a personal commitment to start organizing the community for multiple key reasons. The first purpose is and always should be to create and maintain a curated experience for the fandom. Completing the wiki, sharing developer commentary not known by most of the fanbase, and setting up a radio service are some of the ways to provide more resources, knowledge, and entertainment. That's just a random sampling of what's going on all the time. How about a full album of known concept art, modding tools that even provide bug fixes, or playing around in a Minecraft world? People have always been generally vocal, and they'll clamor about LOD endlessly. However, many will do so on an individual basis or in small groups for years on end. What we falter with most easily seems to be unity and working together as a team. If we can prioritize working together and discuss ideas or plans of action before enacting them, all our efforts would go a lot farther. We could achieve so much more and have a better experience in social media at the same time. Reasons to have this attitude involve having a better community in general, as well as inciting the game's first full unified campaign rally to petition Sony for a new game title. If you want either of these things, I strongly recommend interacting with a global, centralized effort that encourages teamwork and collaboration. A lot of questions will arise. What sort of help is needed, and where? How long will it take? What are some of the current plans going on at the time of this video? While news is periodically sent out to other networks, such as the subreddit and the Facebook group, most of this can be answered by following a single link to our centralized Discord server and reading the recent news posts that share our progress. Simultaneously, it is designed for end-user interactions all the same. You may chat freely, as well as share a live stream or a video recording of gameplay from yourself or another person you recommend. It's also the current location for LOD Radio, where the original soundtrack as well as over 75 remixes are showcased alongside user-controlled requests and live podcasts. In conclusion, for anyone who wants to get in the know on all things Legend of Dragoon or to help build up our community and its projects, please start with the Discord server that will be linked in this video's description. For purposes of networking and additional outreach, we will also include the link for the subreddit on reddit.com, as well as the primary Facebook group. I am DREWUNIVERSE, and thank you very much for watching.
The Legend of Dragoon is the black sheep of the JRPG family. It never got the respect it so clearly deserves. It was overlooked, in my opinion, due to its releasing as the PS1 was nearing the end of its lifespan. If you're a JRPG fan or a retro gaming fan, this game is a must-have for your collection. So go find a copy, or dust off that copy you've had since you were a kid. Give it one last go. I think you'll enjoy it. Thanks for watching.